Hey guys, Snek here. Welcome to Chapter 1 of our Buildfile tutorial. Here we're going to cover text insertion, which is really our first productive thing that we're going to start with build files. The last one was mostly us just digging around when playing with Event Assembler. May have been fun for you, I don't know, but it was fun for me. But now we're going to finally do something that's going to be productive. I'm going to hope to make it a little bit shorter than the last one. We're going to start using some external tools because we can't really insert text very efficiently with the tools that are just natively in Event Assembler. So we're going to use something called Text Process Classic, which is a variation of Text Process by Stan. ParseFile is part of that, and another batch script to help us assemble our text. Just going to introduce you to these here. I've made a new folder in our build file, which is just text. And as you can see here, I'm going to delete these real fast because these are auto-generated. We'll get to that. For the sake of showing you what this does, this is our batch script that we're going to use to assemble our text. Basically, this just calls text process classic, runs in this file that I'm going to talk about in a second, what I'm going to call our text build file, and it's going to also pass in this parser. You don't need to understand how that works. All you have to know is that when we're ready to assemble our text, we can use this batch script to just handle everything for us by just double-clicking. Of course, this exe and this exe, text process and ParseFile, are both used in assembling our text. And that puts it in a format that Event Assembler can read. But what we really want to concern ourselves with is a format that we can read, and we let our batch script and our exes handle the intermediate between us and Event Assembler. So we edit what's called our text build file.event. You can change this file name here by just editing the file name in this batch script if you'd like. But this is not an event script, even though it has the .event file extension. I just use that so that Notepad++ knows to use it. So I'm just going to dive right into the format. If we want to change a single text ID, the format is a single £, followed by the ID. So, as you may know now, in GBA-FE, just about every text has a text ID. So, like, this is why I've included this helpful thing here. TextDump.event. This isn't something that we're going to use in our build file. It's reference. So if I wanted to know where Iron Sword is, this is its text ID. This contains item text, character text, class text, descriptions. These are class descriptions. Conversation text and support text is going to be like down here. It's a lot of text. But for now, let's just focus on, for testing purposes, we're going to try to change a single text ID first. Because we're doing FE8, I happen to know that Seth spawns with a steel sword. So this looks like a good one to change. You may know text dump follows this format that I'm going to follow pretty soon. So its ID is this value right here. And let's say I want to change this to Slim Blade, because why the hell not? Alright. Every text entry is terminated by this control code. This is our first control code that we've encountered. If you've ever used FE Builder text controls, you may know that in conversation text that you have different control codes to open different locations, load faces, whatever. I actually don't know if FE Builder automatically has this control code, but in build files, for text assembling, we need to have this X right here, surrounded by these square brackets. And this right here is enough to change our text ID. So I'm going to assemble this. It's going to give us our friendly message. And you see we have a few things that are auto-generated. It's what we refer to. This batch script and these exes that it calls, essentially, generate this for us depending on what's in this file, text_buildfile.event. We have this, which is raw data for the text itself. We can open this in a hex editor, and it's just going to ink bin this, which means it's just going to insert this raw binary. You may notice it's not Huffman compressed, which isn't especially important right now. We have this, which is auto-generated. Do not edit this. The thing that we want to edit is text build file, because we generate our install text data.event. And this is also generated, and I'm going to get to text definitions later. So no matter how many entries we have, we just assembled our text. If we want our build file here to recognize that it exists, guess what we need to do? We need to include it. So this install text data file was just auto-generated right here. It's auto-generated for the intent that our build file assumes that it exists, and it can just include it, easy peasy. And so we've made a change. Let's test. We can test from our clean ROM. Well, we can assemble our clean ROM into our new ROM. We no longer have vanilla FE8. It looks like vanilla FE8. Let's skip through this nonsense. Uh-huh. Yeah. That's not vanilla FE8. We've encountered our first death screech because we've forgotten to do something. Something that I've hidden in here. Here it is. Essential fixes. I've kept it in Event Assembler just for convenience for me. This is a file that ports with the skill system. It's been around much longer than the skill system, but if you use the skill system, you don't need it. This has a bunch of miscellaneous fixes, like fix the Pierce glitch, fix the auto cursor glitch, stuff like that. One of these is the anti-Huffman patch. I'm pretty sure FE Builder does this manually. With build files, we have to worry very briefly about this, in which, if we don't have the skill system yet, we just include this file. What is it? Underscore FE8 essential fixes.event. Because we didn't make a change to the text, we don't need to reassemble our text. Our text data itself didn't change. We're just installing something that, I guess you could say, complements it. How the anti-Huffman patch works, and why it exists, and what Huffman compression is not a concern to us, really. We just use it because it's really convenient. There we go. We did it. We made a steel sword to a slim blade. This doesn't change description text or anything, but anywhere that the text should appear, this is now slim blade, which is pretty cool. Let's try to change Silver Lance now. So I have my handy dandy text dump right here. Let's look for Silver Lance. It's gonna be... I missed it. There it is. Silver Lance. What do I want to call this? I don't know. I hope that fits. Tungsten's a metal, I guess. So, our format with making text edits is we can chain as many of these together as we like. If I have another thing I want to change, I could just add more and more. Whatever. I'm not going to do that right now. Maybe later. So I've made a change to my text build file. Alarm bells are going off in my head. Something's not right in the universe. I need to reassemble my text. Great. no errors. If I really want to put my mind at ease, I can see there are now 2 text entries being installed. If I want to put my mind more at ease, 2 text entries being installed, a DMP and a .fe text file. If I trust the system, I don't need to check those every time, but if you don't trust the system, then you can. Now that our text is assembled, Event Assembler is going to look at that and see, oh, well, new stuff. Well, Event Assembler doesn't look for if there's new stuff, it just builds. But we know that there's new stuff, so we need to tell Event Assembler, hey, there's new stuff, do your job. Oh, it's way too long. But the point remains, I've successfully changed the text to something. So this is how we can change as many single text IDs as we like. This is a pretty powerful tool, but it would be kind of terrible if, say, we wanted to... Let's say that we were completely overwriting vanilla chapters. I do this a lot, and I don't really care what text ID I use. I just care that all the text IDs are unique. So I could say, like, if I'm overwriting vanilla text, I don't know, some nonsense like here. Oh, I'm too lazy to find the actual vanilla or beginning. I can start writing here. If I want to use the next text ID, I don't really care what the previous one was, but I want this one to be unique from others around it. This is some more text that I want. Some more text. This is implicitly IDOXO BAB. Bab. Man, that was unintentional. Seriously, it was. I swear. This is implicitly IDOX back. Now, if I try to actually assemble with those, it's gonna, like, yell at me. Yeah, it's not gonna know what those are. And if I want to see what these are, I have new ones. Ba, bab, back. So, and then again, I could say, I could have put this down here. Oh. Notepad++, please. And then I could recontinue from another point. Excuse me. This is text. Reassemble because we changed our text. Yes, reload. And we've moved our tungsten lance that's way too long down here. And we have an implicit text ID afterwards. Side note, it doesn't really matter like in what order these go. Like it doesn't matter if I put this up here or up here. The edit is going to be made to the text table either way. Although, I guess that's not entirely true. We're going to have, if we have an implicit definition after this that relies on this text ID, it would change this one. But that's normally not a problem because we would normally in a text build file just have one big block of these kind of implicit text IDs when we're just making custom chapters and overwriting vanilla chapters. I'm going to change this to something more reasonable. We can also have text definitions, which is extremely helpful for making custom items and custom characters and classes and literally everything. Like, if I don't want to just overwrite something and I want to have a text definition, I just do this. Text def 1. Actually make descriptive text definitions too. We're going to see how these are immensely helpful when we do game data edits and we do custom eventing and chapters and stuff much later down the line. If I wanted to, I could put definitions here, but there isn't much point because I'm just overwriting vanilla. I guess I could for consistency's sake. Like I could say slim blade name text, gold lance name text. Speaking of definitions, we're going to start differentiating our definitions, like we're going to have text definitions, character definitions, stuff like that. It's it's good to start developing some kind of consistent definition scheme convention early. Like, for example, personally for me, I have a lot of text definitions floating around that could mean a lot of things. Unless I note otherwise that this is a text definition, maybe I should just do what I do for Avenir. I always end text definitions with just text. Def2 text. Yeah, let's actually try to be good with convention. Def4 text. Of course, you're free to use whatever convention you like or no convention if you don't think that one is necessary, but it's something to definitely consider. So we see this file that we kind of ignored before has started filling up with definitions. I hope these definitions are starting to look, this format is getting more familiar to you as we move forward. Just to prove that they exist, I can come here to our build file at the end, say slim blade name text. Alright, I'm just not going to do the rest. Assemble this. Oh, I made a typo. Slim blade name text. Slim blade name text. There we go. Typos are common. They're normally pretty obvious because Event Assembler yells at you or something doesn't work. They're easy to fix. So Event Assembler recognized these as definitions, and instead of printing these as strings, it just gave me their definition values. 3, 5, 6. Yes. And 36C. And I should hope that in FE8 my gold lance change was reflected because I reassembled text. Cool. Text definitions are great, kids. Use them. Done this, this. So when we start wanting to manage a large... Actually, I'm gonna move these around. When we want to manage like a larger project, something that, like a project that we would want to use a build file for, it's a good idea to start early with some kind of good form of organization. And luckily for us, text process comes with a native organization scheme. Oh, shit. Not with shortcuts. Imagine using shortcuts. Let's say I want to have items here. Remember our friend include? Actually, let's put it down here is where we want it. Of course, this is all by example. You don't, by no means do you have to follow this model that I'm creating just for example, but I highly encourage you that you use include for a large project to organize your things. So let's say that I'm making more custom items. Let's say I'm making spirit dust. Let's tell Notepad++ that I'm editing text. By the way, this is Notepad++ syntax highlighting. I'll probably include these or release these at some point. One for event assembler. We see, like, here. It's nice. Just in case you were curious of how that works. It's something that someone had to make. I built off of it a bit. Text, spirit, dust. And with our handy dandy X, dust, description text. That's just the name text again. I just had a stroke. I don't know. If we wanted to, we could actually follow, like, the stat boosters. Like, how they word things. If we want to be nice and clean. Do they use... Same magic. By 2 points. There we go. This is another control code that's like a buffer. It's not especially useful to us. Most people honestly just ignore it. Inherit dust. Use. Is this the description text or the use text? I don't care. I don't care about use text right now. That's not what this tutorial's about. More items. Let's say I want to make a flame lance desk name text. Whatever. It's going too long. Any number of items that we want can go in this file. Let's say we also want include classes class text. They don't have to be in individual folders. I'm just putting them in folders because just to show that they can be if you'd like them to be. Folders are nice when you have like 20 different chapters or whatever and you don't want it clogging up just one folder. Seems obligatory to use a halberdier. Alright. Here's our second control code that it seems necessary to cover now. New line. FE Builder manually, or not manually, it's the exact opposite of what I want to say. FE Builder automatically hides new line commands from you. With build files, just hitting enter here is not enough to declare a new line for text process. We actually have to say the control code here. Declare this as a new line so that it'll appear in-game. This command is used for our text, like this description text. It's used for like tutorial text box. It's used for like, yeah, it's used for conversations. It's basically used, it's used in the world map. It's used basically everywhere where you have rolling text and a new line is introduced. It's pretty common. If you don't use this, the text bubbles are going to freak the fuck out. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of these. And here we go. We've made changes to our text. I'm hoping for no errors that I didn't fuck up. Oh, it's taking a second. Oh, it's my computer not liking that I'm recording. Okay. So here we go. Let's look at what we're doing. I haven't touched these. This is overwriting this text ID that was Steel Sword with Slim Blade. Because, you know, gotta have a Slim Blade. This is overwriting what was Silver Lance with Gold Lance. Because, I don't know, I'm not creative tonight. Then we're starting at what I'm considering, I guess, analogous to like a free space block. We're just overwriting some vanilla text IDs that we don't care about. And we start with some text. This can be anything. This block of text that we're going to use is for things that I guess we can consider to be fully custom. Things where we're not overwriting specific names for things. We're not overwriting a Steel Sword name or a Silver Lance name. We're just making our own stuff that we're going to learn how to refer to later. Be it chapter text, we're going to learn how to use CSVs to refer to these item text and class text IDs. And to make sure that we can refer to these later, we keep our definitions. So we see our definitions follow this kind of random text that I declared here. We then include our item text, so we're going to hop there. We have Spirit Dust, its description text, and Flame Lance, and those should all happen sequentially. Then we have our Halberdier, because our class text is included next. We have our Halberdier text IDs. Again, in practice, we really don't care what these text IDs are. We would care that they're in a free space block, so to say, of text IDs. But other than that, we only care that they're unique and that we can refer to them with a definition later on. So at this point, I'm going to trust our text definitions and our install text data to know what it's doing. We're not going to see any changes in the ROM because we haven't referred to this text yet, which is kind of unfortunate. But on our next episode, we're going to learn how to work with CSVs, and I'll probably use these text IDs as examples for how we can do that. What's next on the agenda? Oh yeah, comments are really easy. I personally never use comments, but I think that all we do is a pound within a text ID. You can't do it outside a text ID, or else it'll think it's another text entry. This is a comment. I think it should assemble. Yeah, it should assemble just fine. And if I try to do this, it's going to be confused, thinking that it's another text ID. Yeah. What's next? Control codes. Oh boy. I'm actually going to talk about parse definitions next. God, why does Notepad++ do this? Maybe use Sublime, kids. It's fine. So, when we're working with scene construction, and now that I think about this, these two kind of go hand in hand. So, like I mentioned before, if you've ever worked in cutscenes, that we have many control codes to control things. Faces, we can load faces, clear faces, move faces, close, like toggle mouth move, make text red. All that nonsense is handled through control codes. And so the one thing that we haven't really touched on in this folder is parse definitions, which is basically a set of helper definitions that text process looks at, and it looks at this file and it allows us to use these definitions in our text to make our lives easier. Like if you don't like typing out NL every time, you can type out N, because, oh my god, Notepad++, please. You can type out N, because we have this defined as NL. It's a different definition scheme than Event Assembler uses. It's not the, define signature, but that's okay because it's a different .exe that's reading it. So this is just how ParseFile handles it. pretty sure it's ParseFile that handles this one, but that's not really relevant. So it just knows that this is a new line because we've declared this in ParseDefinitions. If I was to delete this, if something were to happen to that, it'd be a shame if something were to happen to your ParseDefinitions. This has a bunch of useful stuff. The blue arrow that you see is A. Like, press A to continue the text after you've done 2 lines. This is an alias for an arrow and a new line. Every time you have an arrow, you have to manually declare a new line after it. I should probably jump into scene construction. Let's find... Actually, I'm going to find some vanilla text, and we're going to overwrite it and do some fun stuff. Let's overwrite this text. What's it start with? Your Majesty, I bear bad news. Cool. This text ID. For the sake of includes, I'm going to put this... No, I'm not. I'm going to put this here. Open? Oh, how many ends is that? Begin text. Whatever. think I've created a very simple cutscene. It's not a cutscene, it's just text in a cutscene. I don't even know whose face that is. Probably Erica's. Yeah. Alright, so that's just pretty cut and dry. It's... this set of control codes is kind of weird, but each one is simple in its own, and we've just done this very simple thing to make text. At least this very simple text, that's what I mean. We can hit A, it goes away just fine. And this just happened because we overwrote the text ID that was this slew of vanilla text. So I guess we can jump into text control codes. This is far left, which is among the family of codes that defines a specific position on the screen. If you've played GBAFE for a while, you may be familiar already that there are 6, but actually 8 positions on the screen. There's, we can scroll down, far left, which is off screen to the far left. Sometimes you'll see faces just slide in from there. When you see that, they're loaded in far left, and then they just move in. Far left, mid left, and left. So if I was to put these in here, these positions would be far left, off screen. This would be the screen border. Far left, mid left, left. This is the center of the screen. Right, mid right, far right, and this is off screen again, far right. It's nice and symmetrical. So before we actually have a code or display text that does anything, we need to define where this is. And each of these codes just changes where the text engine is currently, I guess you could say, where its focus is. And until you change it again, or use a code that changes its focus, within a single text ID, that's where its focus is going to be. So if I don't change this, for the rest of the text ID, the focus is going to be on far left. Then I use load face, which is a specific code that takes what we call a parameter. Kind of like, remember in macros how we have a parameter, macro with an argument or parameter. It's kind of like this. We fit something in here when we want to use the macro. And that's expressed in these hex control codes right here. This is the portrait ID that we're wanting to load. Whenever we use load face, it needs to know somehow, well, what face are we trying to use? Face 2. Portrait IDs are shorts. If we want to get a little technical about it, the way that it knows that this is portrait ID 2. If you're wondering why there's a 1 here, it's because if it was just a short and it used this, it would interpret this as an end of text ID because the hex representation for X is just 0. So IS's solution to that was, well, we'll just make this the portrait ID plus OX100. Easy. And it's kind of a hassle for us because in our build file, or that's not what I meant. ParseFile can't handle shorts that are these control codes. So if we're to use load face manually with hex like this, we need to have our portrait ID and then this OX01. But if you don't want to memorize your portrait values, build files are for you because we can use parse definitions to create custom definitions. Load face. We just made a custom control code, and I can compress this to something that's just this. Yeah. Alright. So following the format that we see here as something new that we want that doesn't currently exist as a control code equals what we want that to equal, we can make custom control codes pretty easily. So now ParseFile knows load Erica just means, oh yeah, it's just this. It's like a definition. So we can stick this text in wherever we want. All right, let's see what this does. We can have multiple faces on the screen. You can have a maximum of 4 faces on the screen. Though if you have that many faces on the screen without a background, you're going to start seeing some issues with moving map sprites that are going around if you happen to also have map sprites moving on the screen. It's a excuse me. It's a rather niche thing, but it's also it's just because of shared VRAM. So this text bubble closed because we're opening another face. Now I can go to far left again. Oh, I don't want to do that. Remember that this is not a new line because we would need a new line here. Right, ParseFile doesn't explicitly see this as a new line. Don't forget your new lines. They're very important. So the nice thing about build files here in this kind of situation is I could just keep playing with text as much as I want and not consider about fucking my ROM in terms of size. Because I'm rebuilding my ROM entirely each time, there's no junk data left over from previous builds. it only includes what the most recent data is, the most relevant data. So, yeah, build files are pretty space efficient. Even though space is cheap, text is really small, but if you have a lot of text, and if you have stuff that's really big, like really big graphics, then, this wasn't what I was going for. Because this isn't a build file thing, this is just a GBAFE thing. We need new lines after blue arrows. I mentioned that briefly earlier, but it's something that a lot of people forget. If you want to know what the max line length is, my trick for remembering it is I have the max line length as a text highlight. There, it's yellow now. So now I know this is about how long I can go. People say that there's like maximum number of characters and such, but that's not entirely accurate because different characters take up different amounts of horizontal space. So use whatever solution works for you, but while I'm typing, I can just say, I'm trying to find the maximum line length. And that's about as far as I'd be safe going. I might even go a little bit over with this, because remember that the blue arrow takes up a little bit of space. I need to delete this before I assemble, because it doesn't know what that is. It's just a temporary kind of like ruler that I can use to... Yeah, there's also a little old but still works, a GBA text viewer, though I don't know if it supports parse definitions. I've never personally used it. Oh, that's perfect. That's about as long as you would want to go right there. So I gave myself a little elbow room back there, just in case. This kind of thing, as far as text formatting goes, is pretty bad. You would want to do something like... this would be pretty good for text formatting, but this is more for the technical side of things. Yeah. Text length, new lines, blue arrows. If I wanted to move, I could say it just follows the same pattern as the open commands. I would say move. This is so far right, so let's say move right. And let's have other Erica say something else, so that the text doesn't immediately end. So if I want left Erica to say something else, then I could just say, just move the focus to far left. I'm saying something. Actually, I'm helping. You are helping. Rip this being shorter than the previous one. Oh well. In terms of video length, well, we might make it. Oh well. I'm trying to be comprehensive. Did you see how Erica's face moved before the text bubble closed? That's something that I see a lot of people do nowadays. They don't close the bubble before they move the face. That's solvable with a really simple control code. Close speech. I suppose it would almost fall under a stylistic type thing, but I think most people would agree that closing speech bubbles before you move a face is a good thing to do. I'm actually not sure if vanilla does this. Yeah, there you go. We can close speech bubbles. That's a really good example of when you would want to close a speech bubble. We can also clear a face, like if for some reason, let's say you're not helping, and no, let's not. Let's say after that we go back to right. Remember, if we're trying to refer to the other Erica, we can't go to far right because she's not there anymore. We have to go to right. Her position has actually changed. Clear face. Then we can go back to far left. Something to keep the conversation from ending. You may notice I'm traversing, going back and forth between the text and the master directories a lot. Some people prefer to have a batch script that will assemble their text and do their event assembler call in all one fell swoop. Personally, I don't like this because... Hang on. Oh. I'm still help. Wow. It's late. Helping. This is something I honestly didn't anticipate. This is just like something you notice when you're debugging. Oopsie. Easy fix. Another good use of close speech. Anyway, yeah, I traverse back and forth a lot. If I were to make a batch script, I personally wouldn't like that. One that would assemble event assembler and text in one fell swoop. Because normally I work with a lot of edits simultaneously before building, and I just keep a mental track of what do I need to reassemble. Do I need to reassemble music? Do I need to do this? Do I need to reassemble tables? Because it does take a little bit of time to reassemble them, and I only want to do that if necessary. I'll probably, as this project progresses, I'll probably include a version of the batch script that makes and assembles everything. So that'll be fun, just in case you do want to do that. Again, it all depends. It's your build file. You could do whatever works for you. I'm just here to help. I'm helping. I hope. We can pause in text. Like if we don't like that you immediately say that, and I want you to pause longer here. It's just dots. I didn't assemble text. There we go. Fun fact about Text Process Classic, it only reassembles your text when you actually change a text ID. So it's actually not reassembling like the Slim Blade and Gold Lance text over here. It's just, it knows only to reassemble our conversation text here. I just skipped over that, but I hope you saw there were some pauses in there. You can look a little closer for the next time I go through. So I want to try to fly through the rest of these. For eye and mouth control, if I were to do a ... toggle mouth move, this is actually a parse definition. Before, in the FE editor days, we had to write out toggle mouth move, which is terrible, but now we just have TMM. If you want a full list of control codes, I'll link some doc on that, and then you can see all the pauses. There are various ones. There's like 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 dots, I think. We look very closely. Toggle mouth move is a very subtle thing. It's used like sometimes, but I don't think... Yeah, it's just very subtle. But it's a thing that can be used like if someone's asleep and they're like Z's and you don't want them moving their mouth or ... while they're asleep. It's just a small, nice thing. We can close someone's eyes. And we can reopen them. We can also make people smile. Smile is another parse definition. Used to be toggle smile. Here it is, toggle smile. A lot of secret parse definitions that I use day to day. I forget they're parse definitions. I'll have a full list of each of these that I cover in the notes that I leave behind in the source here, as well as links to all the control codes, because I'm just going through the most So I just go through the most common ones. Alright, father. And then I think that's it for control codes that I wanted to cover. Other ones are either going to be event-specific, like load overworld faces, or, stuff like that. The last one I guess I should consider covering is if you're going to be replacing battle text, keep in mind that battle text, the bubbles are much shorter. So if I were to do some battle text, why not put it down here? Some battle text. We're just going to use our handy-dandy, I don't care what ID this is, but I have a definition, so I can still refer to it. So, for battle text, this goes for death quotes. This goes for, just like, the special, you're not going to get past me. So for the villain, we're going to open far left, because they're always on the left side. I believe you can also use mid-left and left. I don't think it matters. We're going to load their face. Just going to be Erica for... This is a small amount. Actually, where's O'Neill's text? You will be the first to die. 916. Let's actually test this. I'm feeling frisky. Far left. Load. Erica. I'm the first to die. Always. So we're just going to do this really fast to give us an idea of how long we should make our battle text. This will be the last thing we cover. Slim Blade. Engaging FE8 gameplay. Imagine using Seth. I'm the first to die. I forgot the blue arrow. That's alright. Okay, look closely. So that's about 2/3 of the way to full. We can do a new line as well, if we want to. If Seth were to say something in opposition, we need to clear this face manually, and then go to far right, load, I think, I'm just going to load whatever face is in 3 and hope it's Seth. Every time we want changes to be applied to the ROM, we have to restart the chapter. This is a thing in FE Builder as well. It's just a thing. Why'd I just make a save state? Habit. Yes, yes. Oh, it's Erica, eyes closed. Oh, that's a pretty good estimate for how long our battle text can be. About this longish. Give myself some elbow room. There we go. Considering the blue arrow, it's about this long. I'm going to save that in a comment right here. There we go. There, it's within a text ID. And then our epic battle can take place. How? Okay. I don't think there's much else to cover with text editing. If we want a really quick recap, I've created this text folder. It's our first kind of, I guess you could say, sub-baby build file that we have, where we have tools other than a symbol tools other than an event assembler that handle things for us, and then they output things in a way that event assembler is friendly towards. Then event assembler takes that data, specifically install text data, which we include here in master, right here. Install text data, reads this, kind of scary, but it is acceptable by, you know, event assembler standards. It likes to use text definitions. We can refer to these text definitions because they're included right here in our auto-generated install text data file. Install text data refers to this .txtentries folder, which we really don't concern ourselves with, but it's just the raw data for the assembled text, and it's very quick to install. Really, we don't concern ourselves with .txtentries, install text data, or text definitions themselves at all, these files, because the only things we edit are text build file and anything that it would include, like these two things here that I just made. With text build files, our text assemblers have a hard-on for asterisks. For a single asterisk, we're going to explicitly define an ID that we're overwriting. For a double asterisk, we're implicitly saying, I don't care what this ID is, but I want it to follow the previous one so that every ID is unique. End every text ID with an X, optional definition that's going to show up in our text definitions file and also be visible in our build file. And we're going to be able to refer to like these item names in CSV files for when we start trying to edit item data. Of course, we can also make conversation text. This is going to be one of the biggest parts of text editing that we're going to start doing. If your text is story heavy, you better get good at text formatting. Shoutouts to Auto Newline, which, albeit isn't perfect with text formatting, it's an ASM hack that will stick in new lines for you, and you just have big long lines of text, and it's really fast to format. It's nice. But it's up to you to investigate if you'd like. I'm not going to cover how to use it here. But just shoutouts to that. For battle text, this is about max line length right here. For conversation text, Notepad++, please. This is max line length. Oh, this isn't actually max line length for battle text. So like, oh no, I'm a dullard. I'll put these rules right here. Yeah. Various control codes that I'm going to enumerate later in notes. And am I forgetting much else? We can include for our custom file structure, and that's kind of where the baby build file comes into play. We can define our own parse definitions, which are pretty helpful. If I wanted to, I could say load Erica eyes closed. And there's no limit to how many of these we can do. We could just keep going. For Avenir, I just have a load character for every single mug that we have, and it's really nice because I just don't memorize any hex IDs. Explore parse definitions, make your own. I personally don't use these, or a few of these I don't use, but I encourage you to explore them and find out what you like to use. I think that's about it. Next video will come eventually. We're going to talk about actually editing CSVs and handling our CSVs, which are what we're going to use for indexed tables, like the class table, the character table, item table, map sprite table, stuff like that. We like tables. Probably going to be less about editing the actual data of FE8 and more about handling the CSVs themselves, and then how to edit commonly edited game data is going to come after. Giving Troubadour 7 move, expanding the class list were just recently requested, so I'll make sure to specifically cover those. That's it. If you have any questions, reach out. If there's anything I missed, I'll either cover it in chapter creation for Haped-in with eventing, or I'm just dumb, and I'll be sure to get to that. So, stay safe, guys. Hope you have a nice day or night or whatever. See ya.